Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips a balance in favor of fair use. Okay, this video is from Anon Cat, ANONKAT. I will most definitely leave the link of the video in the description box. And this is about children in the Sea Org, which is part of Scientology. And people keep trying to play dumb, acting like they don't understand the abuse of the children. Like like they're on a completely different planet. They have no idea what's going on.
Billion-year contracts dedicating themselves to the cause. But according to Scarlett Hannah, this kind of dedication came at a cost to the children of the Sea Org, who grew up in what was known as the Cadet Org.
The best way I can describe it is cattle. We were property of the organisation, although they would like to say that we weren't, we were.
Children of
Scarlett Hannah. So there's the children in, I think this is Australia.
Sea Org members rarely had contact with their parents. Scarlett Hannah says they lived in separate homes and were granted only 20 minutes each night with their parents.
I can't describe it. It was just an incredibly lonely childhood. I had no one to talk to or to look after me or...
How many times have we heard this over and over and over and over? And right now I'm in the middle of reading Jenna Miscavige's book. I just started a few days ago. It all needs to end. If the adults want to stay in and abuse each other, let them. But the children need to have freedom. And I don't know how it's going to happen or how it's going to take place, but it needs to. Children need to be allowed to be children.
To ask me how I was after school or, any of those things that most of us take for granted.
The Cadet Org was eventually disbanded around 8 years ago, after Sea Org members were banned from having children.
If you guys believe that, you're way more foolish than I would have guessed.
Until then, Cadet Org members lived in townhouses like this one.
It's probably one of the most overcrowded buildings that we lived in. There's probably up to about 25 kids in this particular unit.
Being looked after by one nanny?
One nanny, that's right.
What about children?
The nannies most often are children themselves. Always seems to get brushed over. I had seen something somewhere online which was, I can't remember, but it was a while ago that it was taped, and it was within the Scientology organization, and an older woman made the comment of, "Oh, and then you get a nanny," or something like that. Really made me rage.
Children, do you ever see them? Oh, that's right. L. Ron Hubbard didn't believe parents were good for children. What a
Sheila Huber is a former executive establishment officer at the Church of Scientology in Los Angeles. At the age of 16, she signed up to the Sea Org. One of her first jobs was as a nanny.
I couldn't believe it. It was
I think they said her name was Sheila Huber.
wall-to-wall cribs. There were just under 30 children, and they were under my sole care. I had no training. I had never really spent much time babysitting young ones like that, and they were all under the age of 3 years old.
Sheila Huber says around 30 infants were crammed into a one-bedroom apartment.
How many times have we heard this? Again and again and again and again we hear it. Jamie Mustard talks about that as well. Very, very similar conditions that he was talking about. Absolute atrocities. Babies.
They never got outside. Actually, they got out once. In 8 months, they got out once. And that took 3 months to get that approved.
3 months to get approved for children to go outside. That's why I've lost a lot of respect for the elder Scientologists. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I have like zero respect for a lot of them.
Sorry, it's hard. We took them in a van, the children, and took them to the park, and they spent so much time in their cribs day after day, night after night, that they wouldn't go in any space larger than the size of their cribs. They were terrified. They were terrified of sunlight.
Wow. Terrified of sunlight.
Scarlett Hannah says children growing up in the cadet org in Australia did not receive adequate food or medical care. She says community services visited on 2 occasions, but were deceived by the church.
The furniture was dismantled by a division within the Sea organisation that deals with labour, and the kids were sent out for the day. It was appear that they were living according to crowding laws.
Sarah McClintock.
I would imagine that someone tipped them off as well, which, from what I understand, that's very typical. The child services, whether they're in America or Australia, they call before they come, what's the point of having a visit? Nobody seems to care about these poor children.
A member of the Church of Scientology rejects every single allegation made by Scarlett Hannah.
What I experienced with Scarlett is she was a very good friend of mine. I grew up with her, and what she is saying, I did not experience.
They just lie. I didn't catch her name, but lie.
Experience, so I don't know where she's coming from with such things. It really doesn't make any sense to me because I grew up with her, I was there with her, and I think people are giving her things to say personally.
For Scarlett Hannah, the worst part of her time in the cadet org was the enforced separation from her parents. Her father, Mark Hannah, was twice sent to the US to the RPF.
Look at that, the blue building.
Scientology's rehabilitation program. According to Scarlett, her father's crime was failing to prevent a negative story about Scientology from appearing on TV.
Which is called black PR. So it's more important for Scientology to not have any negative press coverage. However, when it comes to the babies and the children, they don't matter at all. And the RPF is a thought reprogramming. Basically, manual labor, forced labor, slavery conditions, thought reprogramming camp.
He was gone for several years, probably about two or 3 years.
What impact did that have on you to lose your father like that for 2 to 3 years and not knowing when he would be back?
Well, at the time I was living in a separate house to my mother. I wasn't seeing my mother at all at family time. She would wake me up at midnight and walk me down to her house so I could sleep with her. I lost my father. I had no one to talk to. It was very humiliating because the RPF was a place where the bad guys went. You know, if your father went to the RPF, he was seen as a criminal.
Do you consider taking someone's parent away for a couple of years and putting them into a rehabilitation unit in another country to be a form of abuse?
Well, I think, again, that's...
To be a form of abuse?
Well, I think, again, that's their personal family matter.
Is it a form of abuse to do
Well,
that?
I don't know what to say to that, I'm sorry. Because
Well, it's an organisation that you're speaking for here,
Yeah.
and it's an organisation who has routinely done that to parents and their children. Is it a form of abuse?
Well, I don't actually agree that it's been...
Gaslight, 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 gaslight. Virginia Stewart, all she knows how to do is gaslight. She reminds me of the Debbie Cook that Serge Del Mar talks about. That everybody made poor Debbie Cook. Oh, she suffered so much. Yet nobody talks about the frickin' babies and the children.
routinely done, and I think in that instance, in that family, you would have to speak to those, to the father and the mother as to why they lived like that, why they...
What a joke. What a joke. The mother and the father are never... I'm not giving the parents a pass, but the mother and the father are pretty much worked to death, told that they have to save the planet, so everything comes before the children. And now, all of a sudden, conveniently, we're going to say that these instances have to do with the parents. All of this is criminal, and it really needs to be addressed. All of this is criminal, 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 and it's just enough of it.
chose to take that action.
Dumpster.
But based on her experiences in the US, Sheila Huber says there's little choice involved.
I get surrounded by 8 grown men, grown Sea Org members, 8 grown men.
8 grown men in the Sea Org. I wonder what year this was. It was posted 13 years ago. But what 8 Sea Org men were completely surrounding this young woman who probably weighs £195? Inquiring minds want to know. Names, names, names.
In a circle around me, telling me I am now going to the RPF. I can really relate to Scarlett's story, and this is something that to this day, I still have nightmares about this.
Nightmares. Nightmares like the ones Liz talks about when she had gone through all that physical abuse. So if I caught the story right, I think this lady here, Miss Huber, was trying to protect children and get better living conditions for the children and the babies. And you know what she got because of it? She got punished. She got told to go to that she was going to the RPF, the Rehabilitative Program Facility, which is the thought reprogramming camp, very much like a prison camp. I call it mental and physical servitude and slavery conditions. I wonder how many RAPES happened in the RPF.
And we're talking this, I was on the RPF in 1986. I still have nightmares because I felt.
1986, well, that answers the question. I wonder if Marty Rathborn and Mike Rinder were some of the men surrounding her. I'm not sure, but I do wonder.
I deserted my son. My son, who I had full legal custody of, was illegally taken from me and given to my ex-husband because he was a Sea Org member in good standing.
Sheila Huber was separated from her 5-year-old son for a year. She was sent to the RPF for having sex with someone she wasn't married to. She was unmarried at the time.
Wow. Wow. You see what they do, you guys? Sick. Sick. Is it any wonder why there's so much SA of children and so many RAPS of women? Is it any wonder?
At the age of 13, Scarlett Hannah was kicked out of the cadet org and sent to live with adults from the Sea Org in this home in inner Sydney.
Basically, I was living unsupervised from, 9 in the morning to 12 at night to midnight.
Oh, listen. Unsupervised at 13 years old. Kind of like that creep Wally Banks who was sexually abusing the young girls.
Midnight. At the time, I was going to a very rough school, probably one of the roughest schools in Sydney. I was being bullied and bashed, and so I just stopped attending school. My parents didn't know a thing about it at the time. I started hanging out in parks because I was so social.
Also, they should have been more involved. So, yes, I know they're under mind control. I get that. But parents' job is to take care of their children. Period.
Really isolated. And this led me to being raped by a convicted murderer and running away.
Despite her experiences, Scarlett doesn't blame her parents.
I think they're part of the organisation, they were part of the machine. I think the church had some very toxic ways of managing.
No, they need to take responsibility. I'm so sick of hearing the children of Scientology make excuses. I know it's painful, I know it's hard, but parents' job are to take care of their children. And I know it's a very sticky, difficult situation, but when human beings bring little babies into the universe, their main responsibility is to take care of those babies.
It's staff and their children, and I definitely blame the church as an organisation, not my parents at all.
How could you know what you're doing?
Scarlett Hannah has been under immense pressure not to tell her story. Her father has even threatened to sue her. Scarlett Hannah decided to speak out after seeing the Four Corners program on Scientology.
Just another reason why I say these parents need to be held accountable. Now her father's going to sue her? Yeah, he might be under duress, but I really don't care anymore. I don't.
I just think that the church needs to take some accountability for, what it was involved in. Maybe apologise to some of these people that have had, such traumatising experiences.
Scarlett Hannah's parents declined to be interviewed for this story. Steve Kinane, Late Line.
And tomorrow night on Lateline, allegations that a senior figure in the Church of Scientology coached an 11-year-old sexual abuse victim about the evidence she should give to authorities.
That's it, guys.